Hello, everybody. You all might be getting whiplash hearing my voice instead of Jake's voice. I'm the one doing the intro today. We're talking about Halo today. But first, let's introduce ourselves. Jonathan Colella, that's me. And of course, I'm with my lovable co-host, first time into the Halo journey, Jake. What's up?
Not much. How you doing today?
I am great. This is I can put it on my resume now that I have officially done an intro.
Well, you are the Halo guy, so it only fits for the Halo Minicast.
Yeah, I wonder how many people are gonna listen to this, hear the first 10 seconds, and fucking turn it off. And be like, what the fuck is this guy doing?
To be like, these guys are too in the weeds in their own jokes.
Yeah. So we played Halo 2. Right? We played Halo Combat Evolved, the first one, a couple of months ago, and we just got through Halo 2. And
was it really a couple months?
I don't think it was like a couple of months. I think it was max almost 2 months. It was a decent while ago. You know, we had a long stretch of time where we were not playing Halo, but now we're kind of more going through it at a normal pace. But yeah, there was a gap between Halo 1 and Halo 2. This is your first time playing Halo 2. This was my third time playing Halo 2, and I didn't grow up with it. You didn't grow up with it either, clearly. But I did, I played through this game 3 times over the past couple years, ever since the Master Chief Collection came out. And I want to know what you thought of it.
Well, I do have to give the weird caveat that I always give, that I have played a bit of all of these games, but it was so little and my memory is so bad that I couldn't tell you if I even played missions or if it was just multiplayer.
Yeah.
At some point in my life, I did own a copy of Halo 2.
Yeah, you might as well not have played it yourself.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, I'm looking at it here. I cleared Halo 1 from my GG app on September 17th. And today, we're recording this on November 22nd. So yeah, that is almost a little bit over 2 months.
It's been a while.
So that's crazy. But yeah, I really liked Halo 2. It has been a little bit since we played it as well. So I'm trying to kind of recap my feelings and everything. I didn't write a review or any notes or anything. But I did like it a lot. And I'm like, it's pretty much just on par with Halo 1 for me. As someone who doesn't have nostalgia for it, I see what they did to improve upon the first one, and trust me, they improved a lot. But there's just something novel about the first one, I think, that I'm kind of they're butting heads right now, and I think whenever we rank them at the end, we'll have to see how that shakes out. But yeah, I think it's monumental improvement from the first one in terms of enemy layout, weapon variety, difficulty of levels, just level design and everything, story as well.
Yes.
I know this is one of your favorites, especially for the story, so I'd love to hear what you have to say about it.
Yeah, Halo 2 is super... I want to just use the word ambitious, because that's kind of what it is. Halo 2 is super ambitious with what it did, especially with the story, because, Halo Combat Evolved was sort of... It was like one of those games or movies or something like that, where you were like, I don't think the developers were anticipating making a sequel, and maybe not anticipating isn't the right word, but they weren't sure if a sequel was going to be in the cards. The Covenant are like the Allens, the Allens who need to go to the ring. We don't really get them characterized or anything like that. The UNSC are just like the humans. Everyone kind of blows up and dies at the end except for Chief and Cortana, and they're on the ship, and it just kind of it's all wrapped up in a neat little bow, and that's kind of it. And then Halo 2 is the one where they were like, okay, we're gonna really flesh out this other faction, and now we're gonna make it a franchise. Because that first game, I don't know if you agree or disagree, but Combat Evolved just felt like its own thing. Like, it didn't... If another game didn't come out, it wouldn't be like the weirdest thing. There wasn't any plot twists or loose ends once the credits start rolling. Halo Combat Evolved ends, and then you're like, all right, and then you just moved on.
Yeah, I get what you're saying, but I think just like now knowing how many more games come after that, it's hard to be in that mindset because I see the loose ends that they did leave open to give themselves that leeway, like what happened to the flood, or what's going on with like is the battle between the UNSC and the Covenant isn't over, so there's still more to resolve there and stuff. But I get what you mean that the first one could have ended there and it wouldn't have been weird. Um, but I do think that the way that they go into two, it's like this was the plan. They just weren't sure if they were going to enact the plan. You know what I mean?
Yeah, like they were ready for Halo 1 to just be Halo 1, but Halo 2 obviously is a thing. So that doesn't really mean anything anymore. But yeah, I really do like the story quite a bit. It's probably my favorite part, especially those cutscenes, those anniversary cutscenes. Um like they look phenomenal, but it's kind of interesting because they still look like video game. Like they're not photorealistic yet. Like a ton of not a ton of games, but certain games look super good, um, and they come close to feeling like almost photorealism. But Halo 2 anniversary cutscenes, look really good, but they still look like they're a video game. You know what I'm talking about? Like it's almost
Yeah.
it has that animated quality to it where you're like, this is definitely animated, but it still looks great.
I think they took the same approach that something like The Last of Us 2 did, where it's like very stylized but still realistic. But the thing is, it came out because we are playing the anniversary version of Halo 2, which came out towards the beginning of the Xbox One generation, if I'm not mistaken. So I don't think like mocap tech was as good back then, and they also didn't want to make it as like that dramatic of a shift from gameplay graphics to cutscene graphics, although it is quite dramatic.
Yeah, it's a bit dramatic.
So I think it was very good for what they were working with at the time. And as someone who's like interested in how they remade it and everything, I was kind of flipping back and forth between the original graphics and the new graphics in the middle of certain cutscenes. And it's like they took the spirit of the original cutscenes and just made them like a blockbuster movie. And I think that was probably the right call for something like this.
Yeah, like they didn't make it crazy or anything. If I remember correctly, most of the cutscenes are pretty much like just 1-to-1 with all the.
I mean, the same stuff is happening, but it is not. I wouldn't say it's 1-to-1. Like, I was a lot of the original Halo 2 cutscenes, from what I was seeing, were like either in engine or were like heavily hand animated, and the camera was kind of fixed in one place for most of the time. Whereas the anniversary cutscenes, they're like dramatic camera angle shifts,
Yeah.
different perspective on things. Characters are moving in a different way. All the same things happen at roughly the same timing, but it is like way more dramatic and intense.
Yeah, that's more of what I meant. It's not like a Metal Gear Solid Twin Snake situation. Do you know about that?
Yeah.
Fucking flipping over the missiles and stuff.
Oh my god, that's so funny.
I don't know. Just Cause 2 style. Yeah, I do like the way the cutscenes look quite a bit. I remember watching them a couple of years ago before I played it, and I was like, what the hell is this? What's going on? And then, you switch into the gameplay, and the game looks good,
I think I think the anniversary version of Combat Evolved is better than the regular version of Combat Evolved, which to that one guy in our YouTube comments last time, fuck you, the game looks fine. But
Oh my
the
lord.
anniversary version of Halo 2, I don't know. I kind of like the original graphics a little bit better. I think it was better enough from the first one that it wasn't an eyesore, and I think the anniversary version was a bit too sharp and shiny for my liking, but they both have their benefits.
Yeah, the Halo 2, it just felt a lot of it feels almost like a toy in a way. Like I know the graphics are like, like mechanically good, I would say, like surface level good. Like the textures are high quality and the models look good and stuff like that. But there's something like very toy like about it all. Probably because the colors are super bright in Halo 2 Anniversary. And
Yeah, it's very oversaturated.
it's super oversaturated, and I think that kind of was like a weird decision, honestly. But I guess
I
it kind of
think that
reminds me
might
of,
be.
yeah, what?
I think the reason for that might be because Anniversary came out in an era where HD flat screen LCD TVs and LED TVs were around, whereas the original came out when a lot of people were still playing it either on like an ancient plasma screen or a CRT.
Right.
And so the colors back then, when they were washed out, it didn't matter because the TVs themselves, unless you were, a high-end gamer or someone who was like super into it, you wouldn't really even notice a difference. Whereas whenever the anniversary game came out, they were like, well, we want to make this look good on a modern display because if we kept the colors the same, it would look washed out. And I think they overcorrected and made it like way too colorful.
Right. Yeah. No. Yeah, that makes sense. But when you're playing on your 2023 monitor, it does feel a bit like, whoa, what's going on here?
What did you think of the weapon variety in Halo 2? Because I was impressed with how many weapons just kept coming out, and then it just stopped.
Well, that's kind of the thing. I like Halo 2, and like and most of it's I like the idea of Halo 2, but actually playing Halo 2, I was not a huge fan of this time around, and I wasn't like a huge fan of it the last two times either. Like I wasn't dying to go back to Halo 2, but this time I was like really like, what is going on? Probably because we were playing on heroic, and you really gotta get the full brunt of what Halo 2 does in heroic, because the weapons feel very underpowered in this installment.
Enemies had a lot of health in heroic.
Enemies have so much health, and most of the game I feel like you were using Covenant weapons, which just simply are not as fun. Maybe not as fun, but like they're just not very effective compared to the UNSC weapons. But you barely get to really see as many UNSC weapons in the campaign. I felt like most of my playthrough I was using Covenant weapons, and every time I saw like just a battle rifle, I was like, oh, thank God, like just sipping like water in a dry desert, because every enemy just had some type of innate resistance to plasma weapons, or I was like missing because they're not hit scans. So I was like, oh, please, I know it's a skill issue, but goddamn.
Yeah, I got you. And especially like towards the beginning of the campaign, like Cairo Station and like what was the city? Was it just called like Metropolis or something?
New Mombasa.
Yeah. Those levels, like you kind of get acquainted to the UNSC weapons, and I think that's a good call because if I'm remembering correctly, I think Halo 2 multiplayer was still primarily most modes you would start out just with regular Spartan weapons.
Yeah.
And so I think they were kind of anticipating. A lot of people were buying Halo 2 for just the multiplayer, or like a lot of people. And so I think they were like, well, you're going to be using the UNSC weapons a lot in multiplayer. So in campaign, let's get you used to some of the Covenant weapons. That way when you see them in multiplayer, you're not like, I just stick to what I know. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And, that's a big caveat that we have to put on this. We're only reviewing the campaign. So many reviews and thoughts about Halo 2 and really any Halo game that you're going to find online, and currently it's going to be also mixed in with the multiplayer. It's like a Call of Duty game. You don't play the campaign. You're not looking at the Modern Warfare 2 and you're like, oh wow, this got a 9 out of 10. It must have a really good campaign. It's like, no, the campaign is fine, but it's also like the multiplayer and all the other shit that they put in it. So that's like a big caveat that we have to I think put somewhere. I guess it'll be here. Because I was reading reviews online about Halo 2. I was like, man, these people fucking love this game. Did I miss something? And then I kind of had the realization, I'm like, oh right, I only played the campaign.
I mean, a lot of Halo people that I follow, Halo 2 is one of their favorites because it was the big multiplayer refresh that they needed at the time. But this was the first. Halo 2 is one of the first times I remember hearing about people like calling off work or like calling out school to play the game for the day because they wanted to play the multiplayer. And I do want to play the multiplayer for all these games at some point, but I think the main reason that we're not really covering them in these minicast reviews is because it's like it's already a time commitment for us to finish the campaign, and neither of us are really heavy into multiplayer. So I think just getting like a little taste of each of them at the end, and then maybe we'll have like a little bonus episode of just the multiplayer or something could be cool. Because I do love Halo multiplayer, but we're just not at that point in our lives anymore, I don't think.
Yeah. I don't really want to play the multiplayer unless it's some type of cooperative experience, like the firefight. I'll do the firefight, Do that.
I do want to jump into the multiplayer for the old ones at some point and give my thoughts on them, just because I want to see where the Halo multiplayer came from, because that was my childhood, was Halo Reach and Halo 4 multiplayer.
Yeah,
So I want
yeah,
to see like the older ones. I've played the campaigns of the older ones, but never the MP. So I'll come back
yeah,
to that one day.
yeah. The only problem is that, especially with those older ones, um, there's going to be a lot of people. I feel like most players are going to be the ones who have been playing since when they were younger and like just never stopped. And not, well, I mean, they had to stop eventually because the game's almost 20 years old. But it's like one of those things where it's like, yeah, I played Halo 2 multiplayer all the time when I was younger, and now that it's Master Chief Collection, I've been playing it since like release. That's a lot of the people that you're gonna get on these old games nowadays.
Yeah, absolutely. How'd you feel
Like you're
about
not.
the?
What's up?
Oh, I was just gonna move on and say like, how
Yeah,
would you
yeah.
think of the level design and like the length of the levels this time around?
Yeah. So the complaints I have for Halo 2 are interesting because we can kind of just like compare it directly to Halo Combat Evolved. I think the worst thing about Combat Evolved is that it's boring. There's a lot of instances of just it's just like a little boring, and you're just kind of going, and it just takes a long time, and you're just like, all right, whatever. But I think the worst part about Halo 2 is that it can feel a bit wonky. Um, there was a lot of moments in our playthrough that we'll see during our supercut where a mission ends and we're just like, oh, okay, we're done. Or we start a new mission and then we don't even realize a new mission started. Like missions will end halfway through like an objective that you're doing, or there won't really be like a payoff to something that's happening. Like I feel like most missions and media in general, like an episode for a show is ending, and there's like a signifier that it's going to end soon, and then the ending of the episode feels like something is concluding. Something specific to this episode is concluding. Something specific to this level is concluding. We did this. All right, I think it's over now. But that didn't really happen in Halo 2. We would just like open a door after an encounter, and there would be a cutscene, and then we'd move on to Chief and be like, "What? Okay, all right, I guess that's fine." Like the pacing is just super, super wonky. But the actual levels are fine. They're good.
Yeah, I thought the levels were much shorter this time around compared to Halo 1, which I think was our main complaint with the first one. But it wasn't always like, I don't know, it wasn't as boring because it wasn't as long. But I just felt that the levels themselves weren't as fun. I don't know. I think it's just because a lot of it was either going through hallways and shooting people, which you did in Halo 1, or walking. There was a lot of times where
Yeah.
you're just walking and there's no enemies. I'm like, what's going on here?
Halo 2 is also really difficult. Like it feels almost overwhelmingly difficult at times. Because of what we said with like the enemy health being really high, and then you don't really do as much damage, but you also die really really easily. And I haven't figured this out which one is like what's the problem, but either your shields in the game are super weak or you have like next to no health, because once that shield drops, you're like so close to it. You can die so easily in this game. And I think the worst offender is the vehicle segments.
I was about to bring that up.
Dude, the vehicles are so fragile in Halo 2, and there's so many instances where you have to take out like a group of enemies who have like the same vehicle that you have or better, and they just shred your shit, and you just have to be like, what? Like, what am I doing wrong? What's going on?
Yeah, I think the vehicle missions, that's kind of what I'm talking about more, but than just like the walking around. I think the vehicle missions were the worst part of the game because, especially because how we were playing it co-op, the game is designed for co-op. So it's kind of an oversight that these missions, if one player dies, they just kind of have to sit and wait until that part of the mission is over, or you get incredibly lucky with like a checkpoint spawn. You know what I mean? Like a
Yeah.
lot of those missions are not very good in multiplayer, and I don't think they're very good in general.
Yeah. Again, I just wish. And the thing is, I feel like I still had that same issue when we were playing when I played in normal mode this is the first time I played heroic, so I was like, I'm a big boy, I can do this. But I still remember these issues being the same in normal mode. But now that I'm in heroic, I'm just like, fuck, this is just exacerbated. What did I expect?
Yeah.
Why was I playing a difficult game, complaining about it, and then going, I'm gonna put it at a higher difficulty. That'll be better.
And as hard as the game was, I feel like because the missions were shorter and the checkpoints were much better, even when we were dying a lot in the same place, it wasn't as defeating as when we were dying a lot in the same place in Halo 1. And I appreciated that. But what did you think of playing as the Arbiter and getting like an actual sympathetic side to the Covenant this time around?
Well, I think that's just the best part of the game. Honestly, you know, it's kind of like it's like the Metal Gear Solid 2 thing. This is the second reference to Metal Gear Solid today, but you may not. I guess I might have to explain it to you. But you know how in Metal Gear Solid 2 they faked you out. And you don't play a Snake. Mm-hmm. It's like that, except apparently when that happened originally, everyone fucking hated that. Everyone was really upset. I heard that. Yeah. But this is like that, except the good ending, where I was like, this is awesome. Like from the very beginning, I was like, oh, this is cool. And I remember I recorded your reaction, but you were like, what? We're playing as the Arbiter?
Yeah, because I mean, I was when I saw it was Keith David, I was like, okay, well, he's gonna be like the greatest villain of all time then. And then when we were playing as him, I was like, oh no, he's not gonna be a villain. He's gonna be our friend. Even though they present it like you're still the villain, but I'm playing as him. He's Keith David. I know where this is going, and it was awesome.
Yeah. It's very, very well done. And you know, the introduction of the brutes, and then the splintering of the Tartarus, and then the splintering of the Covenant faction, and like now the elites are not part of the Covenant by the end of it. Like there's a big things are changed. Things are very, very different now. And it's like, oh, you're telling me that now all the elites, like the big bad guys that we were fighting for the entire first game, they're now going to be our boys now? What? Like they just did a very effective job at taking these villainous characters, and then turning them to our side, and then making them kind of like sympathetic. Like you're not like in Halo 3, you're not seeing elites and the Arbiter, and you're like, oh, these fucking assholes. You're just like, oh, yo, it's the elites. Yo, that's cool.
Yeah, and I think they needed that, because if you really think about it, let's pretend that the story plays out where the Arbiter isn't there, and it's just the Covenant are invading Earth in retribution for destroying the first Halo, and then everything with the Flood happens. If you do that, that's the same story as the first game. You're just redoing the first game. But because they had the Arbiter and they had the elites come over to your side, you get to see a different perspective on how the Covenant's politics are going. You also get gameplay differences whenever you have the invisibility, and the missions feel different because of that. And then whenever the Flood come back, it's not the same twist as it was the first time, because now it's an actual warring faction instead of just them versus everybody. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It's like a three-way thing going on, and and it's just really, it's nice because the Covenant is actually really interesting. The UNSC is not interesting. So it's nice to...
It could be interesting. And that's one of the things that kind of bothered me.
Yeah. Well, I mean, in the later games, we'll see in the later games, like Halo 4 is pretty much a character study of Master Chief. And then Halo 5 has some like weird stuff going on between Master Chief and then the UNSC, and like, hunt down the chief. I don't know if you remember that campaign. Yeah, the whole point of Halo, like the whole marketing campaign of Halo 5 was that like Chief has gone AWOL, hunt down the chief. I don't know if that was like what it was called, but
and
it was
then
like
he had the scarf. I remember that.
Yeah, he had the scarf. He had the big blankie that was not in the game. Why would Chief need the blankie?
It was still cool.
It was cool, but Chief is a practical man. Why would he do that? Like who? Like and it's not in the game either. It was just like a marketing thing. That the marketing for Halo 5 is kind of just like we'll talk about this once we get to Halo 5 in 2030 or something. Because the marketing for Halo 5 is completely absurd. It does not correlate with what happens in the game, not even a little bit. So.
Well, But what I'm
Yeah.
saying is, I think that so obviously everyone jokes that there's all the novels and all the lore books and stuff for Halo, and it's like they try to overcomplicate it. I am more right now, because we've played Halo 3, but even in the moment whenever we just finished Halo 2, I was more interested in learning more lore about what the fuck's going on Earth than I was about the Covenant. And I mean, they showed us more of the Covenant this time around, and that was like the focus. But like, why are there like just random metropolises everywhere? Why is the Earth government like one unified governing body, and like why is the military of Earth all one? Like, it's interesting to me, and I want to learn more about that.
It's just it's called good writing,
Yeah, I
buddy.
guess.
Take a seat and consume some.
Yeah, I know. And I did like the story a lot in this game, but I think it's time that we address the elephant in the room.
What
In
is
that
the elephant in the room?
this game, it does not
Oh, right.
it does not end.
Right, yeah,
It's
yeah.
just the story is going and going, and you're the Arbiter and you're Chief, and the Flood come back and you're warring against the Flood, and then credits roll.
It's called a plot hanger. What is it called?
Cliffhanger.
Cliffhanger. It's called a cliffhanger. Pick up a book sometime, buddy.
Listen.
There's a boss fight.
Listen.
The game's over.
Yeah, we were doing a boss fight, and then the game ended. I was like, that was the final boss fight?
Yeah. You shot Tartarus, and his body just kind of slumps over, and then for 10 seconds we just like look around the room, and then the cutscene loads, and the game's over.
And then the credits rolled, and I went, what?
Yeah, I know you. And I thought you knew that. I thought you knew that was gonna be it. There's no climax. The game just ends. And I already told you this, but that's because apparently there was supposed to be much more to the game. And by much more of the game, I mean like most of Halo 3, I think.
That's just wild to me. Like, I get that gaming was in a different place back then, but people fucking love Halo 2 and the story of Halo 2, and it just doesn't have an ending. I don't, like, that is
Oh yeah.
perplexing to me. Like, I know I'm making a big deal out of it, but the game has no resolution whatsoever. And I get it.
Yeah.
It's the second part of a trilogy, which means you have to break down the heroes so that they can rise up in the third one. But I just wasn't expecting it to be like a complete, like, fizzle out, nothing happens.
Well,
kind
they
of thing.
they didn't even break them down. This was before the breaking down. This was like, it would have been a cliffhanger. It would have been it would have been more of like breaking down the characters, and then like more of a cliffhanger if the game ended with Chief falling off of the Prophet's ship and then falling into orbit, like how the beginning of Halo 3 starts, which is just an iconic introduction of Chief just fucking plummeting to Earth.
That was so funny.
Yeah, it's great. But yeah, no, I think you're vilified for this because I remember,
When you say vilified, you mean like I'm wrong?
No, you're correct.
Okay.
I think that's what vilified means, right?
I thought vilified means people like make you out to be a villain.
No, that's what I did too, because that's how I remember playing New Vegas, and that was the first time I ever heard the word vilified before, and I was vilified. Yeah.
To speak or write in an abusive or disparaging manner. You have been vilified by the press. So I would say that I am not vilified.
Oh, dude, that's bad. I've been using the word wrong for like
oh no.
For like a couple months now, because I thought somebody, you know what, motherfuckers, somebody used it incorrectly in front of me, and I was like, oh, that must be how it's used, so I'll just use it like that from now on. And they were wrong, so now
that's how most of human history has gone, though. So
I guess
I think you're vilified in that.
I don't know. Some guy, I wonder if I used that in a job interview, and he was just like, what? What the fuck was I saying? Oh, okay. I remember now.
The ending.
I think that you're correct. I think that you're valid in your upset feelings towards the end of Halo 2, because I remember over 10 years ago when I was younger and I was, playing Halo Reach, like, I love Halo. And I watched like Halo videos online, like top 10 things in Halo. It's just like top 10 worst things in Halo, like shit like that. I do remember plenty of people being like, Halo 2 is awesome. However, this ending, what the freak, guys? What finishing the fight? Now we gotta wait 4 years to finish the fight? Yeah, what a bad ending. So I remember even back then, 10 years after the fact, after the game came out, people were upset about it online. But who knows? Maybe that's just people who are just like us too,
Yeah, and honestly, It isn't a nitpick because I do think it's like actually pretty bad, but I do think that if you just consider that the Halo Master Chief Collection exists now, and that's the way that people are going to play Halo, and everything's just right there, and you just move straight into the next mission, and it's like nothing really changed. Yeah, it's a story. It just continues. It's fine. It picks up right where it left off. It's not the biggest thing in the world. I'm not that upset about it, but it is like just bizarre.
Yeah, I already knew it was gonna happen too, so it's just like I knew it was gonna happen years before I played it, so I was just like, all right, okay.
Yeah. I think that we came down to a pretty good place with Halo 2, but if you remember from the first minicast episode we did for Halo 1, not only are we ranking the games, I'd also like to rank the set piece moments from the game. So what do you think would be like the big moment from Halo 2? Is it like the flood crashing on Earth, or where the ship that we were on? Is it playing as the Arbiter? Is it the grave mine moment? What do you think would be like the biggest set piece moment from Halo 2?
The flood crashing on Earth is 3.
Yeah, no, but didn't they not like the scary moment, but like whenever they come back to I believe it's on the ship. Oh,
it's on
the Covenant ship.
High Charity. It's on one of the yeah. There's a High Charity. They invade High Charity, and but the first time we see them is actually very early in the game on some installation or some shit like that. I think that the what did I say that the set piece moment was in the first game?
We went back and forth as to whether it was flood coming out for the first time, or if it was the escape at the end, and I think we came down on it being the flood.
Oh yes, it was the flood because that is specific to Halo 1, and as you know in Halo 3 there is another escape segment which in my opinion completely blows it out of the water. But Halo 2, those are both gameplay moments. I do have to say Halo 2, there is no gameplay set piece that blows me away. But I would say what either has to take the cake is it's probably the grave mines. Actually meeting the grave mines. I mean, like, oh, big worm. That's my favorite part of the entire game. But also the beginning cutscene too, is pretty iconic. In the Halo ring just blew up in the last game, and now this is a little bit later, not very long after. And we get these two scenes side by side where Chief is getting decorated for blowing up the ring. With Johnson, they're getting medals and stuff like that. Meanwhile, the Arbiter is in High Charity, and he's getting branded for losing the ring. So I think that either of those moments could be the set piece moment. It's hard to pick between the two. I think they're both amazing, but yeah. I want to know what you think.
I think if you're willing to concede, I think it would be the grave mine moment, because that also leads directly into Chief being teleported into the middle of a Covenant civil war.
Oh, right. Yeah, that's funny.
Which is awesome. And it caught like the idea of like, oh, the Flood aren't just stupid. They're a hive mind. We get to meet their leader. Chief and the Arbiter meet for the first time. Both of them have a life-changing revelation that what they thought is not true. Well, I guess more of the Arbiter and Chief just kind of finding out that the Flood are intelligent. And then immediately...
that would shit my pants. That's life-changing to me.
Yeah,
if a giant parasite picked me up and was like, now I'm going to teleport you.
Yeah. And then they both get sent out on this mission where they're working together. That's like I would say that's honestly probably the turning point of the story, if not the climax, because like we said, it doesn't really have an ending.
Yeah.
So I would say that. I would definitely say that.
Yeah, I agree. That's also a good space. I think I like the idea of having two to pick from, honestly. But once we get to Halo 3, I feel like we won't have to pick one of two. And then, just one thing I want to mention. What the fuck is going on with that teleport? Why the Gravemind can just do that? What?
You can do that, but yet the Flood are still tied to the ship in both 2 and 3. Like what's
going on? There's a lot of like weird plot holes like that I think are funny, that you kind of have to use a little bit of like mental gymnastics to be like, all right, just move on. But that is probably one of the funniest ones, because like you should teleport a tiny little Flood spore into the brain of one of the prophets and just be like, all right, I did it.
Yeah, I didn't even really think about it until you just said it. But yeah, because I was rereading the lore and it said Chief gets teleported thing. I was like, wait, really? He got teleported? He didn't get like
Yeah.
fly there?
Yeah, yeah. They even showed like I remember. I don't know if this is in the original, but they when that scene is over and like they're getting like dragged off, they like glow as if they're being teleported, and I just want to be like, what? How did that happen?
Yeah. So do you think that the Gravemind revelation moment is better than the flood reveal from the first game?
Oh man,
I would
I do like
personally.
it more
Okay.
because I like the Grave Mind. I just love the dialogue of the Grave Minds. How he kind of talks in poetry almost, and he has some fucking really hard quotes. He says something along the lines of like, I have listened um through rock and metal and time, and now I have listened, and now it's your turn to listen, or something like that. He's got some hard quotes that I'm like, I still think about and go like, whoa.
Yeah, I think just as a moment in gaming history, the original flood moment I feel like stands out because it was
Yeah,
so crazy. Um, but I get where you're coming from, so I'm willing to let the Gravemind rise to number one on our list.
yeah. Like I keep coming back. Like I watch that cutscene on YouTube every once in a while because I really think it's that cool. I'm not doing that for Halo Combat Evolved. I'm like, that was a cool. Like I'm gonna go back to that, but I do come back to those cutscenes and I go, God damn, they were really putting something together here.
Yeah, yeah, especially because it's like the whole level is called the Gravemind and it leads you in that way with like the scary picture on the loading screen and everything. So yeah, I think that definitely stands out as the big moment from the
Yeah,
game.
I love it.
And then as we wrap up the show, we got to rank the Halo franchise. So far, obviously, Halo Combat Evolved is at number one because it's the only one. So where do you think Halo 2 lies? Is it going to be number two or is it going to be number one?
Oh man, You know what? I could really go either or. Here's the thing. You have to really ask yourself, what's worse, to be janky or to be boring? Um, I do think I enjoyed Halo Combat Evolved more this playthrough, and I wrote this in my GG app review. But I remember my AC broke while we were playing Halo 2, and I got really fucking mad. I was getting really pissed off. Because I was hot as hell, and it was not cooling down. I was waiting for my AC to kick in. It was not cooling off. I was like, what the fuck is happening? So I was getting really annoyed. And when I would die or something annoying would happen and we would have to restart a checkpoint over and over again, I was getting really annoyed. I was not feeling like that in Halo Combat Evolved. When we played the first one, I was pretty content the whole way through. Even the boring bits were fun because we had each other to kind of like bounce off of. But when things got rough in Halo 2, I was feeling it and I was getting upset. So I think just based on that, I do have to put it lower than Halo 1. Sorry. This is zoomer ass
I
take. I
I
know it's a zoomer ass take, but I have to say it.
but I think you justified it perfectly because I'm also going to put Halo 1 above Halo 2. Um, just because even though some of the levels were long in Halo 1 and we did have a lot of backtracking to do, perhaps because of my fault, I still enjoyed the gunplay a lot more because the enemies were not as tanky. I enjoyed the vehicle missions a lot more because if they weren't terrestrial, like if you were in a Banshee or whatever, there was always areas where you could land and take on the fight normally. You didn't have to be in the Banshee. For the most part, except in that one level, I think the library where you do have to have it. But outside of that, you were given a warthog every once in a while, and I thought it worked way better in the first one and then the second one. And then finally, just because you were able to find the weapon you wanted like 80% of the time in Halo 1, whereas in Halo 2, you were pretty much just stuck with whatever they gave you.
Yeah, it's like, do you like the plasma pistol? I mean, do you like the plasma rifle? Do you want one in red? There you go. I'm like, oh, great.
Yes. So I don't know if that's a Zoomer take. I feel like we've justified our opinion so much that I can't imagine anyone else. Like I'm gonna have to talk to someone else who's really into Halo because I don't know what the general consensus is about like the ranking of the games. I can't imagine someone really liking Halo 2 that much more than the first one. I think the first one has a lot more going for it.
I don't know. Well, I'll tell you what though. My GG review of Halo 2 has 2 likes, so maybe
Hmm.
2 people agree. I'm sure one of those are you
Yep.
or Nolan.
No, it's me.
Maybe, probably both.
Yeah, maybe. But
Yeah.
yeah, I really liked Halo 2, but I didn't like it as much as the first one. With that said, though, it's still a phenomenal game. I mean, there's a reason that these are classics. There's a reason why everyone always talks about how much they love Halo, and I think you can't go wrong with playing any of them, at least the ones that we've gone through so far.
I'm glad you said that. I'm glad you said that because I noticed it the other day when you were talking about Silent Hill 2. Something you do that I don't know if you know that you do is that we will talk about a game and give it the most like bone crunching, like strip the flesh off its bones criticism, and then you will at the very end of it go, still a phenomenal game though. Do you know
I
you
mean,
do that?
because there's always so much more negative to talk about something than there is the positive. But if the positives outweigh the negatives, then you got to give it credit where credit is due.
I just think okay, no, I agree. No, I completely agree. I just think it was funny how I was just like, oh, I wonder if he's gonna do it today.
Here's the thing, if I'm gonna bash a game, I'm coming into the review bashing it. But if you notice, for that one or for this Halo 2 or even for Halo 1, I like to come in bringing a positive attitude, talk about what I love, and then strip it down.
Right, of course. It's
That's
the poop sandwich.
See, whenever you write, you get to write about the good, then the bad, then more good, and then wrap up. But when you're talking in the podcast, I feel like makes much more sense to talk about what you love and what you didn't like. But then you still got to bring it back to the positive in the end, or else you'll be left with a bad taste in your mouth.
Yeah, that's true. That's what I usually do. I just kind of fizzle out. I'm like, yeah,
Just
this
like
game
Halo
was
2.
like, yeah, just like Halo 2. I'm just like, blah blah blah, this that, and then yeah, all right,
But yeah,
and then that's it.
I loved Halo 2. I know you didn't like it as much as the first one, but I still think that we
It's
had a really
fine.
good time playing it, and I'm looking forward to playing it again one day.
Oh yeah, no, yeah, we can have a good time playing a game, but still finish it and go, well,
Yeah. So,
yeah, and that's how I feel. I had a good time, and that's you know what, worth the price tag.
yep, I think that's going to bring it into the Halo 2 minicast, which we're actually going to have a conclusion for. And yeah, so follow us on Instagram and YouTube at SoftlockPod. We will see you again for the Halo 3 minicast coming up here in just a couple weeks.
Woo!
Anything for the people before we leave?
I think the lead writer of Halo 2, wherever they may be right now, must be like, what the fuck is these guys' problems? What the hell? It wasn't that bad.
It wasn't that bad. It really wasn't. It was just pretty noticeable.
We're just joshing you. Insert name here.
Yeah, we should probably do some research. I bet he's like a big celebrity in the game industry that we just don't even know who it is.
Oh yeah. I mean, they did good work, all of them. That's what we should end it with,
Yep, of course. So,
Woo.
until next time, we will see ya.
Goodbye. Oh, see ya.